So, very good evening, friends. Today we'll start with chapter 3 and then we'll move on to chapter 4 and 5. We have basically understood the concept of social stock exchange. So, social stock exchange is an exchange that may be a part of an existing stock exchange, or it may be a separate stock exchange wherein securities which are issued by NPOs or for-profit organizations, they will be listed and traded. So this is the basic concept of social stock exchange. A lot of stock exchanges are already there in other countries. It started with Brazil in 2003, and then South Africa 2006, Portugal 2009, Canada 2013, Singapore 2013, UK 2013, and Jamaica 2019. As of now, there are only 3 stock exchanges which are live: Canada, Singapore, and Jamaica. And what is the model of this social stock exchange? So basically, one of the formats is matchmaking platform. There are investors and there are investees. In social stock, let us understand this concept, basics of this concept. Suppose there is a school. Now school is providing education. Now the school needs funds. So what are the various ways in which funds can be taken by the school? Can anybody tell? Because revenues are less than the expenditure and school is in need of funds. So what are the various ways in which funds can be taken by the school? My first question is whether school can take loan.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
They can.
Acha, whether school can take grants.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And whether school can take donations.
Yes.
Yes.
So these are the 3 ways in which social stock exchange also works. So through social stock exchange, also these 3 types of receipts are taken by the social enterprises, whether they are non-profit organizations or they are for-profit organizations. They may take loans, they may take donations, and they may take grants. But some intermediaries will enter. Like in the present scenario, there is a direct contact between, say, the donors and the school, between the bankers who give the loan and the school, or between the, say, education department or some other departments of government or wings of government which are giving grants, or corporates and the school. But now in this concept of social stock exchange, some intermediaries will enter. So what these intermediaries will do? These intermediaries will definitely, they will justify their presence. So they may say, okay, we will aggregate some of these NPOs and then we will issue securities. So this is one way. Presently, in the present scenario, when there is no social stock exchange, schools or hospitals or other NGOs, they are directly receiving the grants or loans or donations. But in this concept of social stock exchange, some intermediaries will come who will play their own role, and they will either aggregate the NPOs, or they may aggregate the givers. So they may assume different roles. And basically, it is something similar. Suppose you are giving a donation. Earlier, you were giving donation directly to the school. Now, you may be subscribing to the bonds issued by the NPO or for-profit organization, which are listed on the social stock exchange. So if you are giving a donation, you were earlier also not expecting anything in return. Basically, you were getting tax exemption only. So similar will be the situation here. But suppose you were giving a loan, you were a banker and you were giving a loan to a school. Now you will be giving to the loan to this social enterprise, either it is an NPO or for-profit organization, and you will be expecting things in return. You may be directly giving the loan to the NPO or for-profit enterprises, or it may be done through intermediaries. Or the intermediaries may play a role that, okay, we will aggregate these 10 NPOs, and then when certain conditions are satisfied, we will give them loans and we will be assuring we will be acting as a counter guarantee for those loans. So some way, some interference is there in case of a social stock exchange. And the things are not so direct as were the situation earlier. So this is the basic concept.
तो सर
Now-
इसमें लिस्टिंग का फायदा क्या होगा? मतलब अगर ये तीनों पार्ट तो वैसे भी हैं, स्कूल को तो वैसे भी लोन मिल जाएगा डोनेशन, तो फिर सोशल एक्सचेंज का लॉजिक क्या है?
नहीं
मुझे
नहीं
ऐसा-
नहीं लॉजिक तो देखिए ऐसा ना, लॉजिक तो ये है कि अर्लियर भाई ठीक है, they were directly interacting with the donors or with the agencies which were giving them grants or giving them loans. But now the government also or the regulators, they want to play their role, because sometimes the impact, basic thing is the impact or the intent for which this is taken. Earlier, you were not sure whether the amount which you gave was properly utilized or not. Now, with these various intermediaries, they coming into play, you will be somewhat assured that, because sometimes the donor doesn't know the NPO. And if there is an intermediary in between, if there is a person who is ensuring that, okay, the NPO or the for-profit organization, whatever purpose for which it is taking donation, it is creating a social impact. That is the basic idea, that the impact which is purported to have been created is actually being created. So that is the basic concept.
इसमें कोलेटरलाइजेशन नहीं होगा क्या? क्योंकि जैसे अगर वैसे डायरेक्टली कोई भी स्कूल या ट्रस्ट को लोन तो मिल ही जाता है अगेंस्ट दी एग्जिस्टिंग प्रॉपर्टीज, तो अब इसमें क्या कोलेटरलाइजेशन नहीं होगा? होगा ना कोलेटरलाइजेशन भी तो.
No, but what happens is actually there may be certain NPOs or for-profit organizations which were not getting donations, although they were doing good work. And there were some NPOs or for-profit organizations which were not doing good work, but still they were getting donations, maybe because they created an impact. So actually the idea is that we are working towards this achievement of these sustainable development goals. That is the idea. The idea is to create a better world by 2030. And
इससे
these
तो
are,
इसमें तो फिर बेटर होता कि इसको इक्विटी लिस्टिंग कर देते, पैसा मिलता, आराम से चलता. ये तो मतलब इम्पैक्ट क्या होगा? सोशल इम्पैक्ट ज्यादा होगा भी नहीं, क्योंकि मैंने स्कूल में काफी काम किया है, वैसे भी लोन मिलता है, वैसे भी वो डिफॉल्ट हो जाता है, इसमें भी डिफॉल्ट हो जाएगा, तो स्टोरी तो ऑलमोस्ट सेम ही रहेगी. बेनिफिट तो सोशल एक्सचेंज में दिख नहीं रहा मुझे.
no, it is not like that. It is not like that actually, because SEBI is also coming into picture. So with SEBI coming into picture, there will be certain stricter regulations for as far as issue of capital and disclosure requirements are concerned, listing obligations and disclosure requirements are concerned. So then there will be unfair trade, this curtailment of unfair trade practices in stock exchange. So the SEBI will be some sort of a regulator for these securities. So SEBI will play its role, and definitely there will be some sort of corporatization or standardization of the various types of NPOs or for-profit organizations, which were till now not in a very formalized state of affairs. So now all this process, it is intended to be formalized, and the impact is intended that, okay, the intended impact is actually achieved. So that is the basic idea.
सर कितने लोग जाएंगे इसमें? मतलब मैं इसलिए बोल रही हूँ क्योंकि मुझे पता है स्कूल में 50% का तो EBITDA होता है, वो सारे के सारे प्रमोटर्स जो है वो निकाल देते हैं कुछ उल्टे सीधे कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स करके. तो अब इसके अंदर कोई जाएगा ही नहीं. अगर सेबी रेगुलेटर है तो उसको क्या मिलेगा? कॉस्ट भी बढ़ जाएगी लोन की भी, क्योंकि इतने सारे इंटरमीडिएट आएंगे, इतनी रेगुलेशन हो जाएगी, तो कोई स्कूल वाला तो जाएगा नहीं पैसे लेने के लिए. क्या करेंगे? क्योंकि उनको सोशल इम्पैक्ट का मतलब ही नहीं है, सरकार को मतलब है. तो क्या ये चाहे तो चीपर फंड हो तब इसका बेनिफिट है, अगर फंड
No,
महंगे हो जाएंगे.
actually, there may be NPOs or for-profit organizations which were not getting the desired funds. Schools may be an exception. I am also dealing with so many schools, and definitely schools are normally revenue earning NPOs or for-profit organizations. But there are other organizations which want to do work, but they are not getting the adequate funds. And so such organizations definitely will gain some advantage through this social stock exchange. And there may be a concept of aggregators also. Some NPO which was not able to garner funds on its own, now it will be aggregated with similar organizations which are working in similar field, and together they may be given some funds. So that is the basic idea.
Sir, I have a doubt. Why this social stock exchange concept is not much popular in developed countries? Most of the already established SSCs are in developing countries. Why it is not in the
No, that is
like USA or European countries?
just a minute. हेलो, हाँ जी, मेरी मीटिंग चल रही, बाद में करता हूँ बात आपसे.
सर इसी से रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन है,
So,
गवर्नमेंट को क्या करना चाहिए
actually-
सर? इसका रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन है जो उन्होंने बोला है सर, गवर्नमेंट को क्या करना चाहिए? ये सोशल ऑडिट तो आई डोंट थिंक सो कि ये मतलब जो है इतना सक्सेसफुल रहेगा इंडिया को देखते हुए. गवर्नमेंट इससे अच्छा सारे एनपीओ को टैक्स लगा देती, टैक्सेबल एंटिटीज करके प्रॉफिट्स के ऊपर, और बोल देती नॉर्मल कंपनी के जैसा रहो. तो इससे क्या होता है कि ये सोशल इम्पैक्ट भी हो जाता, लोग पैसा भी कमाते हैं. 100 करोड़ 150 करोड़ का एक स्कूल बनाते हैं, ये हॉस्पिटल बनाते हैं 200-300 करोड़ का.
I don't think we should go into that. But in today's newspaper also, there was a news that, okay, these NGOs or the organizations which are working at village level, they will also get their social audit done. Basically, the government wants to control that the funds which are given by the government are properly utilized. So that is why they are introducing this concept at village level also.
हाँ, so this is the only कि जहाँ पर donations मिली है, FCRA मिला है, उनको कंट्रोल करने के लिए, तब then it makes sense. बाकियों के लिए कोई इतना ज्यादा मतलब प्राइवेट के लिए इतना सेंस नहीं बनता है ये.
Yes, naturally, wherever the government is giving funds, and government is giving lot of funds through various schemes, so naturally all those schemes will be under some sort of social audit, and there might be some sort of standardization, because there are various types of NPOs and NGOs, and we have witnessed in the past that in certain cases funds were misutilized by those organizations. So
you are right.
that tendency is needed to be curbed. So that is the basic idea. That okay, once you come under these regulations, then definitely there will be a tendency, yes, okay, because there will be an independent agency in between, there will be intermediaries in between. So there will be a check on the activities which was not there in the present scenario. So that is the basic idea. When so many people are watching what you are doing, so definitely you are more careful. So that is the basic concept.
Yeah, government may want to improve the SDG score.
Yes,
in 121, yeah.
Definitely. That is the idea, basically. Right. Because it is at the lowest level in the 3 parameters. So now, because they want to come, basically the government also gets its funds based on the rating. If the rating is more, definitely the IMF or some other agencies, they are giving donations also. They are giving donations to countries, and they are giving donations to countries based on the working what they are doing. So that is also a step in that direction, that okay, once we show that okay, we are utilizing the funds which we are getting, then definitely more funds will come. So IMF or World Bank or other agencies, these UN, etc., they may be willing to give more funds to India once they say that okay, it is heading towards transparency. So that is the concept basically.
Yes.
So now let us see this. So it started with Brazil, then South Africa, Portugal, Canada, Singapore, UK, and Jamaica. And there are 2 models. One is the matchmaking platform, where the investors and investees will come. And they will presently they are catering either only to for-profit enterprises or only to NPOs. But the social stock exchange concept, which is coming now in India, it will cater to both. So till now there was no comprehensive solution. So even the existing social stock exchanges like Brazil Stock Exchange and South Africa, they are catering only to NPOs. And these in Singapore and UK, they are catering to for-profit enterprises. But now there will be a comprehensive solution, and the social stock exchanges, which are intended to be established in India either independently or as a wing of the existing stock exchange, they will cater not only to NPOs but to for-profit enterprises also. And second mode of the social stock exchange could be alternative investment instruments, which will be listed on an existing stock exchange. And in India, the intention is that, okay, these for-profit enterprises and NPOs, they will be doing the trading, they will be doing direct listing, and other incentives will also be given, and there will be some minimum reporting standards which will be issued for compliance.
सर ये
And-
में जो लिस्टिंग होगी, लिस्टिंग मतलब इक्विटी शेयर इशू करेंगे इसमें?
हाँ, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, राइट. हाँ,
And they
bonds
will be
issue करेंगे, they will be issuing bonds.
Freely tradable.
हाँ, yes.
Okay.
So इसमें क्या होगा, ये जो minimum reporting standards है, which will be issued for these for-profit enterprises and NPOs, so they will be based on the general information, governance, funding, legal and statutory filings, reports, etc. So the social stock exchange, basically, what they will do is, they will be a separate segment of a recognized stock exchange. Just this we have covered. And what is the rationale? Rationale is that, okay, they will be channelizing greater capital. The gap which is there between the investors and the investees, or between the donors and the receiving agencies, so that gap will be bridged. And there will be transparency and accountability, as we have seen in the concept of information repositories. These information repositories will be issuing, they will be compiling the information of various NPOs and for-profit enterprises, and they will be disseminating it on a regular basis, so that an investor or a donor, he can come to know that which are the organizations which are working in a better way, and they will definitely give donations or loans or grants to such organizations. And what will be the functions of this stock exchange? Functions will be, there will be standardization of procedures, there will be a framework of procedures, guidelines, and a code of conduct of the organizations. And what will be the different stakeholders in this? There will be trading members. Trading members will be allotted more than one user ID. NPOs will be there, for-profit organizations. There will be market infrastructure institutions. Social auditors will be there. Then information repositories, which will be compiling the information, and they will be sharing it with the in public domain. There will be regulators, and then there will be investors. These organizations which will be issuing their scripts on the social stock exchange, they will be subjected to these ICDR regulations also. So as per ICDR regulations, not for profit organizations means a social enterprise, which is any of the following. So it could be a trust, it could be society, it could be a Section 8 company, and then there could be, so ICDR recognizes two types of NGOs. One is not for profit organizations, and then there are for profit enterprises. So these FPs, they would list equity on the social stock exchange subject to a set of listing requirements, including operating practices, financial reporting and governance, and social impact reporting. That is, for profit enterprises would be subject to minimum reporting standards. According to ICDR regulations, for profit social enterprise means a company or a body corporate operating for profit, which is a social enterprise for the purpose of ICDR regulations, and does not include a company incorporated under Section 8 of the Companies Act 2013. So in addition to existing eligibility criteria and disclosure requirements, for-profit enterprises shall also have to be eligible as a social enterprise. So it has to be an enterprise which is intending to create a social impact and shall have to make additional disclosures in terms of the social impact created. However, for-profit enterprises may be identified clearly as for-profit social enterprises by the stock exchange, distinct from conventional commercial enterprises. Now let us understand the concept of the Section 8 company. So one of the form of NPO is a Section 8 company. The Companies Act defines Section 8 company as a company. Objective is primary promotion of commerce, art, science, research, education, social welfare, religion, charity, protection of environment, or any such other object. So these companies also intend to apply their profits, promoting its objectives, and intend to prohibit the payment of any dividend to their members. So by law, NPOs, they face restrictions. Actually, there is some confusion in this concept of social stock exchange because we are trying to equate these securities which will be issued by social enterprises at par with the shares. But the concept is not so. The concept is the same as was there in case of existing NPOs or trusts or societies. So they will be taking either donations or grants or loans. So that is the basic idea. It is not that you will be getting shares and you will be getting profits and all those things. So by law now, they face restrictions on their ability to issue debt, equity, and mutual fund units. Because if a trust now it wants to issue debt, equity, or mutual fund, there are restrictions naturally. Notable exception is Section 8 companies. They can organize on a share basis, but these shares are not residual claims on profits. As Section 8 companies, they cannot pay dividends. So while there are no regulatory hurdles in listing such shares or debt instruments of Section 8 companies, these avenues have not been utilized by Section 8 companies. So there are not many shares which have been issued by Section 8 companies, apparently due to their inherent inability to provide financial returns on investments. Now this concept of social auditor. So as per SEBI ICDR regulations 2018, so there are two types of auditors. One is in individuals, and then there are firms, social audit firms. So social auditor, which is working in an individual capacity, it means an individual registered with a self-regulatory organization under the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India or the other two institutes, or such other agency as specified by SEBI who holds a valid certificate offered by National Institute of Securities Market. So social auditors will perform independent verification of impact reporting. Audit of social impact, that is social audit, shall be mandatory for entities on social stock exchange. And in addition to the social audit, there will be financial audit also, which was there in earlier scenario also. So there will be two types of audits. One will be the financial audit and the other will be the social audit. And the period for social audit may not be the same as in case of financial audit, because social audit may cover even more than 1 year at a time. So it may try to gauge the impact which is generated by a particular scheme, so even if it is spread over, say, 2-3 years. So social audit firms, then there is a concept of the social audit firm. So social audit firms means any entity which has employed social auditors and has a track record of minimum 3 years for conducting social impact assessment. So these firms shall employ social auditors who have qualified a social certification examination conducted by NISM, and social auditors will be required to be empaneled within self-regulatory organization under ICI as a separate sustainability directorate. So typically there will be code of conduct, naturally, as there are other professions. So similarly, code of conduct will also be there. Information repositories, they will be compiling information and they will be disseminating information so that a database is available which is generating reliable, accurate, and timely information in electronic form, so that the investors, they are provided with transparent and comparable information. So these information repositories, typically they will function as an aggregator of information on NGOs, and they will provide a searchable database in a comparable form. Like you might have seen the concept of information utility. So these information banks are giving information to information utility that okay, we have given so many loans. So similarly, these information repositories, they will also be receiving information. Regulations will come that okay, these are the schemes we have undertaken, and this is the social impact we have created. So IRs typically function as an aggregator of information on NGOs, and they provide a searchable database in a comparable form. So these IRs are needed because there is a dire lack of robust information on NPOs, unlike in the for-profit sector. As of today, if you want to get information on any NGO, so it may not be so easy. And if you want to make a comparison, but these information repositories, they will fill the gap. Although some intermediary, although so these intermediaries, they can partially function as IRs for the social stock exchange in the immediate term. So for example, GuideStar India is an information repository of NPOs because there are some organizations which are working already, but naturally now the procedure will be more standardized, and all the NPOs whosoever want to get their securities listed on the social stock exchange, they will be subjected to the regulations, and they will be required to furnish information to these information repositories, which will compile a database of reliable, accurate, and timely information. So these IRs, they play an important role in building confidence in NPOs by providing credible and standardized information about them. They also act as feeder to the social stock exchange by helping players on the social stock exchange access additional opportunities to fund high quality NGOs, because now there will be comparison, because when information about all the NPOs are available, then the investors can choose, okay, where should I invest my funds? Market infrastructure institutions. So market infrastructure institutions, what are they? So the stock exchange, the clearing corporation, and depositories, they also play an important role in the ecosystem. Then regulator and the self-regulatory organization. SEBI is the regulator of the social stock exchange, and to establish the primacy of its social intent of the project or programs or activities, SEBI came up with a new class of auditors, the social auditors. So social auditors shall be registered with a SRO, self-regulatory organization, under the three institutes. And the SRO is named as the Institute of Social Auditors in India, an NPO, which is registered as a Section 8 company. Now all the three institutes, they have formed their own SROs. Other important bodies concerning the evaluation of social auditing in India are Ministry of Rural Development, CAG, and Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Then there is a concept of governing council. So that is also a very important concept. So SEBI has also specified that every social stock exchange shall constitute a social stock exchange governing council to have an oversight on its functioning. The SGCs shall have a balanced representation drawn from various categories of stakeholders, such as philanthropic and social sectors, including public or private sector donors, NPOs, information repositories, social impact investors, etc. This governing council is expected to provide oversight and guidance to facilitate the smooth functioning of the operations of the social stock exchange with regard to registration, fundraising, and disclosures by social enterprises. Then investors. Investors are of two types: institutional investors and non-institutional investors. So in the context of social stock exchange, there are some investors, outcome funders, interested in creating social impact in the same sector as the implementing agencies, and the second category is risk investors, or is a venture capital fund. Now these primary stakeholders, communities or target groups. So the social enterprises, they target underserved or less privileged population segments or regions recording lower performance in the development priorities of central or state governments. So these communities or target group, they are classified as per social intent pursued by the social enterprises, and then they've again given the sustainable development goals. So this is something similar. Then let us understand the funding structure. So while both for-profit organizations and NPOs are concerned with social impact, the type of funding avenues open to them are fundamentally different, given the nature of their legal structures and expectations of their fund providers. So specifically, for-profit enterprises, they can raise equity while all NPOs cannot. Now, funding structures. Suppose it's a corporate, then corporate will be dictating its own rules, definitely. So the social stock exchanges, they will enable the routing of risk capital or venture or commercial capital to non-profit via specialized funding structures. Post-registration, NPOs can directly list on social stock exchange through issuance of zero coupon, zero principal instruments. Section 8 companies can raise funds through issuance of equity. Then certain other means available to NPOs may include social impact funds and development impact bonds. So these are some of the things which may be issued by the these for-profit enterprises or NPOs. So each of these are discussed in the subsequent sections. So basically, the idea is that there is a need to create an appropriate investment structure which could take a variety of forms. And the idea is to create a social impact. Now, pay for success structure. Now, earlier, the structure was very simple. NPO was directly obtaining funds. Whether it was utilizing them properly or not, that was subject to some sort of limited scrutiny. But now all the NPOs, they will come under scrutiny, and in the times to come, government may say that, okay, every NPO will be required to get its social audit done also. Nobody stops the government. So they may work on these lines also. So now the idea is the pay for success structure. Idea is to keep the funds in abeyance, either with some intermediary or through some escrow account, and then pay only the organizations which are really creating social impact. So in these structures, the conventional capital coming from institutional investors or banking institutions, they are combined with social capital coming from philanthropic foundations or CSR spends or impact investors to fund a specific NPO or a group of NPOs. So even NPOs may be aggregated. So conventional capital bears some risk as it only earns a return if social impact is demonstrably created, that is the pay for success part. So as a result, the NPO beneficiaries are incentivized to perform and gain credibility, or else risk considerations that would prevent them from being able to use such structure to finance themselves, because only those NPOs will get funds which are able to create a social impact, and other organizations for which the social impact cannot be adequately demonstrated, they will not be able to get funds. That is the basic idea. Then the performance of NPOs is strictly along the social dimension, as the financial returns are provided by the social capital participants upon successful creation of impact. You create the impact. You are saying that you will create. If you are working in education, demonstrate to us that, okay, you are really working, and then you get the funds. But if you are simply getting the funds and not doing anything, then you will not get the funds. That is the idea. So these kinds of structures are particularly well suited for the SIF classification and are already in vogue in the form of social impact bonds or development impact bonds around the world and in India. The pay for structure can be further bifurcated into 3 types. So pay for success through lending partners. It is something similar to the bank loans, which are being availed as of now by the various NPOs. But now these lending partners, they will give you funds if you can demonstrate your success also. If you can say that, okay, we are creating the social impact. So till then, they may be parked either with some intermediary or they may be parked in some escrow account. And another could be the pay for success through social development impact bonds. something similar to the donation. So a structured finance framework involving implementation agencies or NPOs working towards similar social outcome is aggregated by an intermediary. One NPO directly may not be able to get donations. They may be aggregating the way. Suppose there are 10 NPOs which are working in, say, upliftment of the living standard of poor people. Then they may aggregate the intermediaries. They may aggregate such 10 NPOs, and then they may allot them the donations, or they may give them the donations. That is the basic idea. And second is this pay for structure through lending partners. So in this case, something similar to the loan concept. So in this case, access to sustainable finance in the form of term loans is an attractive option. NPOs today also, like hospitals, educational schools, etc., they are getting loans. But now this will be through the lending partners, and it will be based on the concept of pay for success. So access to sustainable finance in the form of term loans is an attractive option for NPOs.
Sir, I have a question here.
Yes.
Will the intermediaries will get their commission, or they will be also doing a charitable work for maybe, for organizing funding and all the, will they be getting any commission sort of a thing? Or
all the regulations will come, but definitely there will be some sort of mechanism by which the NPOs, they may be required to pay for their say administrative expenses or something of that sort. Maybe a certain percentage of the finance which is given to them. So the access, because now also, because if a bank is giving you loan, so they are getting some service charges, they are getting some finance charges, interest. So something similar could come.
Yeah.
But the idea is that they may aggregate the organizations, so they may aggregate the NPOs, and they will ensure that actually the NPOs or for-profit organizations, they are creating the desired impact. And then only the funds will be given to them. That is the basic idea. So this pay for success through lending partners, so access to sustainable finance in the form of term loans is an attractive option for NPOs to implement innovative programs that require commercial capital to scale. A structured finance solution can work for an NPO or a cluster of NPOs working towards a common social outcome across different regions of the country. This involves a contractual agreement between several stakeholders. The lending partners, such as banks or non-banking finance companies, they provide the liquidity instead of risk investors. In this structure, the intermediary identifies a well-tested intervention employed by an implementation agency, an NPO or a cluster of NPOs, to create social impact. The intermediary also identifies lending partners. So now they are doing this part. The intermediary is finding both the investors and the investees. They are identifying the NPOs which are doing good work, and then they are identifying the persons or parties who are willing to lend to such enterprises. So intermediary, the task of finding is with the intermediary. So they will identify a well-tested intervention employed by an implementation agency to create social impact. Intermediary also identifies lending partners to provide a multi-year unsecured lending facility to the implementation agencies to scale its operations. अभी तक जो सीधा सीधा हो रहा था काम, अब वो थोड़ा सा घुमा करके होगा. So further, the intermediary onboards one or more outcome funders who are willing to pay for a predetermined set of outcomes that the program aims to achieve. So an initial portion of these funds from the outcome funders can be held in escrow by the intermediary. That okay, you are willing to work in this field, you demonstrate your ability, you demonstrate the impact, and then we will release you funds. We are having funds. We have identified the lending partners. We are the intermediary. And we have aggregated the various NPOs. Now let them come out with their results on a periodical basis, and then we will release you funds. So this is the basic idea. So an initial portion of these funds from the outcome funders can be held in escrow by the intermediary. to help make interest payments to the lenders, because lenders, suppose there are banks, now they are intending to lend to the NPOs, but they are not lending for free. So they may be requiring their interest payments also. So what they will do, these intermediaries, they will hold the amount in escrow account and they will make interest payment out of that, while the principal payments would be made only upon the achievement of outcomes. So once that success is achieved, because some of these are for-profit organizations, even these NPOs which are working, say, in education sector or hospital sector, now also they are also charging money from the patients. So what they will be ultimately generating revenue, and they will be able to pay the loan amount. But intermediary will come in between, who will ensure that whether NPOs need to be aggregated and at what stage we should pay them. There will be no direct connection between the lenders and the NPOs, which was the scenario till now. The credit risk in this structure is determined by the ability of the implementation agency to achieve the outcomes, which in turn will facilitate releasing payments from the outcome funder. Suppose there is an organization which, say, wants to avail loan, or which has been identified by an intermediary, but it is not able to demonstrate its ability to generate a social impact, then that will be denied the funding. That is the basic idea. Therefore, these funding structures only work for well-tested programs that are ready to be scaled up, as only these could provide the lending partner enough confidence to originate these assets. In order to mitigate any misalignment of incentives, the intermediary can offer credit enhancements in the form of first loss default guarantee, because sometimes the organization may not be able to pay initially. So the intermediary, it will stand as a first loss default guarantee. That is, the intermediary agrees to bear first losses on an investment in order to reduce the credit risk and thus motivate other lenders to participate. Because as of now, every lender may not be willing to say lend to the NPOs. But now with this concept of intermediaries coming into play, which may be having some sort of, say, government equity participation also, all the regulations will come, which will then demonstrate adequately what would be the role of these intermediaries, what will be the ownership structure and all. But so these will stand in between the NPOs and the lending agencies. Lending agencies will also be able to reduce their credit risk, and then they will have more motivation to participate in the social impact creation. So that is the basic idea. Now the third is pay for success through grants. In this pay for success through grants, what is the idea? Like till now also, these NPOs, they are getting grants from the government. Now, in this case, naturally, the intermediary, they will ensure that, okay, once your activity is complete, so with this, using CSR grants for pay for success models. So this is an innovative. Now, actually, it depends upon the company what sort of CSR grant it is giving. So it may be a pick and choose also. They may be picking projects on their own. They may be dictating their own terms that you work in this sector, you work in this area only. But now these will be aggregated. These grants will also be aggregated. The NPOs will also be aggregated. And these intermediaries will ensure that grants go to the right person who is creating the right impact. That is the idea. So using CSR grants for pay for success models. So it says that, okay, you give the grant only to those who are worthy of receiving such grant. So using CSR grants for pay for success models is an innovative funding mechanism which ensures that CSR funds are deployed effectively, as payment is made only when social impact is created, when social impact is achieved. In this structure, the CSR arm of a corporation selects an area where it wishes to create social impact and selects an NPO for implementation. So CSR capital is put in an escrow account, earmarked for pay for success for a predefined time period over which the impact is expected to be created. Now it is not just on whims and fancies. So it will be put in some escrow account. You have to meet certain guidelines. You have to demonstrate the social impact, and then only funds will be released to you for a predefined time period over which the impact is expected to be created. And NPO is saying that, okay, they will work in, say, upliftment of poor people over a period of 3 years. Then this money, which is being given through CSR grant, it will be put in the escrow account, and it will be released only when you are able to demonstrate the social impact.
Sir, a question इसमें initially, if they are going to put the entire grant in an escrow account, then how the NPO, which doesn't have any funds, will be able to perform its function, create a social impact? That means
No. They actually, they may give some money, because NPOs also, they are getting funds not from one source. Grant is one, loan is another, and donations are another. They may be having some funds on their own also. So definitely, once they are able to demonstrate that, okay, they have spent so much, so they will be getting the grant. So it will be some, say, it could be subject to some utilization certificate or something of that sort. And in the meantime, they may be granted some credit facility also by the lenders. There may be some interim grants. So all those regulations, all those details will come definitely. अभी क्या हो रहा था, अभी तो अंधेरगर्दी बहुत ज्यादा मच रही थी ना, वैसा अंधेरगर्दी नहीं होगा. अब सारी चीज को एक एक तोल करके दिया जाएगा. So CSR capital is put in an escrow account earmarked for pay for success for a predefined time period over which the impact is expected to be created. The CSR funders also appoints and bears the cost of a third party evaluator. These companies which were giving the CSR grants, so they will be appointing a third party evaluator, and they will be paying the cost of appointment of such third party evaluator, distinct from the corporation and the NPOs. So it will be an objective partner which will be distinct from the company and from the NPO. So based on the intervention, outcomes are jointly identified by the CSR funder, NPO, and third party evaluator. And targets are set upfront for the NPO to achieve. भाई क्या करना चाहते हो? You do and you get funds. ऐसा नहीं कि वैसे ही मिल जाएगा और आप उसको कुछ भी कर लो. To achieve the outcomes, because many malpractices are being done in the CSR funding also. All of us are aware as a professional. So to achieve the outcomes, and government is also aware of all these things. To achieve the outcomes, the NPO requires capital to carry out the intervention. And these come from the fourth entity in the structure, an interim funding partner. Now, here is the answer to your question, Sangeeta Gulati ji. Interim funding partner is there.
Yeah.
So typically a domestic philanthropic organization and distinct from the third party evaluator. So this will also come into play, the interim funding partner, which will fund for the time being. So upon completion of the intervention or at the stipulated milestones of the intervention, the third party evaluator verifies the impact, some sort of, say, utilization certificate, as was given in the case of projects. So this third party evaluator, it will verify the impact achieved by the NPO, and then it will submit its report to the CSR funder. If the CSR funder finds that the NPO has achieved the outcome, then it pays out the CSR capital from the escrow account, partly to the interim funding partner to cover the latter's cost of implementing the program, and partly to the NPO. Okay? In the form of an accelerator grant up to 10% of the program cost in case the NPO exceeds the predefined outcome targets. Now, in the next stage, initially, there will be an interim funding partner. But now, once the third party evaluator satisfies the CSR funder, that the NPO is working in the right direction, then at later stage, grants could be, there could be some sort of acceleration also, and they may be giving 110% of what is the intended expenditure, up to 10% of the program cost in case the NPO exceeds the predefined outcome targets. The grant to the NPO is designed to provide additional support for non-programmatic areas such as research, capacity building, etc. If the CSR funder finds that the NPO has not achieved the outcomes, then it either rolls over the CSR capital in the escrow account if the predefined time period is not yet over, or routes the CSR capital to items provided under Section 7 of the Companies Act, such as the Prime Minister's Relief Fund. भाई मोदी जी को दे दो, अगर आपसे नहीं हो रहा तो मोदी जी संभाल लेंगे. If the predefined time period is over, if during the time that the CSR capital is in escrow, it accumulates interest, then this interest remains in the account. So this is the basic idea. So Pratham, this is one of India's largest NPOs. It has tied up with Godrej Properties to innovate a long loan guarantee scheme for micro entrepreneurs. That is an interesting variation on the grants and grants out structure. Now, social development impact bond structure, which is there in other countries. So development impact bonds is a structured finance product that has evolved in the development sector to create incentives and aligned payments for social outcomes. So basic principle kya hai? Basic principle of this development impact bond structure is that a grant is made to an NPO after it delivers on pre-agreed social metrics at pre-agreed costs or rates. The donor who makes the grant when the social metrics are achieved is termed as outcome funder. Isko kya bolte hain? Outcome funder. Given that the outcome funder makes the payment on a post facto basis, the NPO needs to raise funds to finance its operations. इस फंडर को क्या बोलेंगे? रिस्क फंडर. ठीक है, पहला रिस्क फंडर आ जाएगा. Outcome funder is safe. Outcome funder will come into picture when the NPO demonstrates the social metrics and it says that the social metrics are achieved. Usko bolenge outcome funder. But till then also NPO needs some funds. So that will be funded by the risk funder, venture capital. So a risk funder not only enables financing of operations on a prepayment basis because you need to pay, but also undertakes the risk of non-delivery of social metrics by the NPO. Now, the NPO, which is getting the payment, it may or may not create the desired impact. So to that extent, the risk funder is at risk, but the outcome funder is safe. To compensate for this risk, a risk funder typically earns a small return if the social metrics are delivered. Okay? So risk funder ko kya milega? He will get a small return. The social outcome is measured by an independent third party evaluator. Social impact kaun judge karega? The independent third party evaluator judge karega. An intermediary shall be responsible for bringing the actors. ये intermediary का role क्या होगा? Intermediary या film का director हो गया, film का producer हो गया. He will bring together all these things. There will be risk investors, ठीक है? Those who will pay in advance. Okay, this NPO is trying to do some good work, so let me invest something. So they will be the risk investors. Then there are safe players, outcome funders. So outcome funders will release funds only when certain social metrics are met. Then there will be third party evaluator. Third party evaluator, they will independently judge whether the NPO is working towards the desired goals or not. So these development impact bonds, they are governed by tight legal contracts and have strong governance structure in place on reporting, impact measurement, etc., but are currently able to access a limited set of institutional donors and investors. Development impact bonds can be listed for individual projects or for a pool of projects like infrastructure projects. They may be working that some people may be interested in funding for projects which are working for poor people. Some others may be interested in projects which are aiming at, say, some medical relief. So similarly, these development impact bonds may be issued. So these can be listed for individual projects or for a pool of projects in a particular area. That okay, we want to work in the Vidarbha region. We want to work in a drought affected region. So similarly, this impact, because some people may be having inclination towards a particular type of projects or towards a particular region or towards a particular sector. So similarly, these development impact bonds can be issued. So development impact bonds can be listed for individual projects or for a projects in a particular area, and the listing can be for just risk funding, debt capital, or for outcome funding, grant funding, or both. Now these development impact bonds on social stock exchange, they can bring in new money sources to credible NPOs. The idea is to fund the NPOs which are working for a good cause, who are willing to follow disclosure norms. So further, with CSR acting as outcome funder, will reduce complexity of CSR duration for smaller companies. So development impact bonds also present an opportunity to channelize risk investors' need to fund credible social projects. So globally, development impact bonds are seeing increasing traction. As per Brookings report on what is the size and scope of the impact bond market, it is observed that 194 impact bonds have been issued so far across 33 countries, and most of these bonds have been issued in developed markets, 177 in UK and US out of 194. The total capital deployed in impact bonds exceeds USD 420 million. So these are success stories in India as well. Now implementation agencies, a collection of implementation agencies or NPOs working in the same sector, accessing credit for an activity that creates social impact. So these implementation agencies, basically these are the social enterprises. So it is a collection or a conglomerate of implementing agencies or NPOs which are working in the same sector. Then outcome funders. Outcome funders we've already seen. Outcome funders are relatively at lower risk because they release funds only when the social impact generation, social impact creation is demonstrated. So investors interested in creating social impact in the same sector as the implementation agencies. So they will pay out based on the social impact. भैया पहले कुछ करके दिखाओ तभी तो हम पैसे देंगे आपको, ऐसे लूटने के लिए थोड़ी बैठे हैं. From activities of the implementation agencies. क्या कुरच क्या बोलते हैं सोनी जी?
Yes,
Kurach. तो पहले कुरच दिखाओ, you demonstrate some कुरच activity, then we'll pay you. So typically, an outcome funder can be CSR donors, foundations, retail investors, or government who desire to fund development outcomes, creating impact at grassroots without the risk of backing ineffective solutions. Hence, an outcome funder commits to repaying principal and returns if targets are met. Now, risk investor. Risk investor is one who pays beforehand when the activity is started, but it is not sure whether the NPO will be able to create the desired impact or not. So this is the risk investor. So these investors, they provide the upfront capital for desired outcomes and carry the risks of achieving outcomes. Risk investors introduce market discipline and commitment to disclosure norms for NPOs. Then the third party evaluator. These are the external organizations having expertise in designing, assessment, lay outcome parameters, measure and evaluate outcomes and impact against the target set. As is the concept of, say, valuers. So similar concept of third party evaluator will be there in here. So they are employed for a fees to provide their services. Okay, you pay them the fees and they will say, okay, whether the desired impact was created or not. So these intermediaries, these entities are they specialized in result-based financing aimed at solving pressing issues. So they are responsible for aligning all partners together. So let us see the key partners in a development impact bond structure. One is the service provider or the implementation agency. What is the motivation? Motivation is to access pooled and continuous funding to achieve uninterrupted coordinated action on the ground. What is the role? They are these NPOs or for-profit, they are implementing the programs to generate social impact. Okay? And what could be the type of entities? The type of entities could be either NPOs or for-profit organizations or for-profit enterprises. Outcome funder, we have seen those who play safe. They will pay only when the social impact is demonstrated. They will to fund useful projects to create impacts at grassroots without the risk of backing ineffective solutions. So they will not pay to underperformers. They will pay to performers only. The role is to pay the investor their principal amount with interest for funding the project upfront. And what will be the type of entities? CSR donors could be there, who will put their funds in escrow account till the outcome is demonstrated. Until then, philanthropic donors might come. Retail investors and government. Risk funder, investor, those who get the risk, those who are able to take the risk. So what they will do? To get back the investment with interest approximately 4 to 8% if the targets are met, or to lose a part of the amount if they are not met. Now, because they will be funding, so they will be getting some sort of interest also, because sometimes their money also may be lost. Suppose the NPO was not able to give the desired impact, then their money may be lost. So they will get back the investment with interest, say approximately 4 to 8% if targets are met, or to lose a part of the amount if they are not met. Definitely, besides this interest, they will be getting some tax concessions also. Like suppose this, if you invest in infrastructure bonds, then you get some tax concessions. So similarly, tax concessions will be there for these risk funders or investors also. So what they will do, they will.
Sir, this 4 to 8% interest, who will pay? The outcome funder or the NPO?
Actually, there will be a mechanism for this. Maybe the outcome funder will pay, or actually the risk of failure could be at different stages. Maybe the NPO passes this first stage. Okay, they are able to demonstrate that they are doing good work, but say for 1 year. But at the end of 1 year, the funds may be released by outcome funder. But after 1 year, the NPO may cease to work. So there could be different stages at which implementation might come to a halt. So depending upon that stage, the interest payment will be done. Things will be more clear in the times to come.
Yeah, so it means that this will be something predetermined, that what percentage of interest they are going to get.
Yes,
Whether it is 4 or
definitely.
6 or
Definitely.
So there will be some contract type of a thing with the NPO and the
Yes, contracting arrangements. The concept of contracting arrangements is there already.
सर अभी तो आपने जो अभी थोड़ी देर पहले बताया था कि फंड एस्क्रो में रहेगा, इंटरेस्ट जो है वहां से सब होगा और प्रिंसिपल का पेमेंट तब होगा जब आउटकम दिखेगा। तो इसका मतलब ये है कि ये जो आउटकम फंडर है वही रिस्क फंडर का पहले इंटरेस्ट पे करेगा, एनपीओ तो नहीं करेगा। अब जो प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी मतलब जब जो प्रिंसिपल रिपेमेंट है वो एनपीओ करेगा, फिर बाद में या जब सोशल ऑब्जेक्टिव हो जाएंगे तो फंडर भी कर सकता है। मतलब अगर
एक्चुअली बहुत सारे देयर आर सो मेनी टाइप्स ऑफ स्ट्रक्चर्स, और जो भी उनका इंटरनल जो कॉन्ट्रैक्टिंग अरेंजमेंट होगा उसके हिसाब से होगा ये सब चीजें। Contracts will decide.
What you are saying, ma'am, it could be from the escrow account. The money will come from the escrow account and will be paid to it and to the other people also, because जो पैसा आएगा
Actually funding is coming from actually
उसमें से उससे पेमेंट ही तो करेगा ना जी escrow में से।
Actually NPO is getting funding from various sources. There are philanthropists also who, in addition to these outcome funders and risk funders, who are paying to the organization. अभी भी क्या हो रहा है? In the existing scenarios, NPOs are getting through all the 3 channels. They are getting donations from individual donors. So then they are getting CSR grants also, and they are taking loans also. So similar is the situation here, but they have introduced some regulators. They have introduced the concept of intermediaries. They have introduced the concept of pooling of NPOs. So they have introduced the concept of pooling of credit facilities. They have introduced the concept of third-party evaluators. So अभी जो existing में चल रहा है, some sort of similar scenario will come, but with increased regulations, increased checks. That okay, the social impact which was desired to be created is created. That is the basic idea.
एक किस्म से सर जो समझ आया, जैसे इंसॉल्वेंसी के अंदर इंटरम फाइनेंस वाला काम है, ये ऐसा ही काम हो गया, इंटरम फाइनेंस
हाँ,
चाहिए।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल बिल्कुल। हाँ जी। और थोड़ा पर्दा और उठेगा और थोड़ा सा डिटेल
हाँ,
में
वो
जब हम
तो
देखेंगे।
नेचुरली
हाँ,
डिटेलिंग में जाता है। पर
So,
मोटा मोटा जो समझ आ रहा है वो इसी टाइप की चीज है कि इंटरम
यही है। हाँ,
फाइनेंसिंग दे दी
बिल्कुल
उसने,
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल
और जब
बिल्कुल
उसके
बिल्कुल।
पास पैसा आएगा तो सबसे पहले इसको जाएगा।
बिल्कुल। और जा भी सकता, नहीं भी जा सकता। सपोज ये गायब भी हो गई एनपीओ,
वो तो
सपोज
पैसा ही नहीं
एनपीओ
आया,
मैनेज,
वो तो पैसा ही नहीं आया तो इसका गया।
वो तो रिस्क फंडर इसीलिए तो है ना ये।
हाँ जी।
हाँ। So
वो
to supply upfront
सर
capital.
इंटरम फाइनेंस में भी यही चीज है ना कि जी पैसा
मैं
आएगा
सोनी जी
तो मिलेगा।
बोलेंगे, सोनी जी बोलेंगे हिंदी बोलो बट कुरच कुरच।
ओके ओके।
Oh, no problem.
सॉरी
सोनी जी?
सॉरी सोनी जी, सॉरी।
सोनी जी मोर को क्या बोलते हैं? मोर जैसे कुरच कुरच तो लेस हो गया, मोर क्या है?
കൂടുതൽ കൂടുതൽ
कोडदल।
more means കൂടുതൽ, yeah,
कोडदल।
കൂടുതൽ, കൂടുതൽ കൂടുതൽ
कोडदल।
Hmm.
तो क्या बोलेंगे? You speak more in English, then what will you say?
കുറെ or കൂടുതൽ, there are a lot of words. കുറെ, you are speaking കുറെ in English.
Okay.
കുറെ.
Correct. To supply upfront capital for implementation and get paid by the outcome funder. So entities with capital market expertise, then discipline, who can bring the rigor of disclosure norms to social markets. So they will be entities who will be acting as risk funders or investors. Then there will be independent evaluators like the concept of valuers. So they will provide, what they will provide? They will provide the unbiased measurement of social impact generated and to lay out the outcome parameters, measure and evaluate the impact against the targets set in the contract. So these independent evaluators, they are the external organizations who have expertise in designing, assessment and evaluating different outcomes. And naturally, there could be a procedure of rating of such independent evaluators also. Because naturally, because these are supposed to be independent, so there could be a rating mechanism for such independent evaluators also, that okay, you if you get yourself evaluated by such and such person, or that person must have some, say, credit rating. So that concept could also come, because then only confidence will be generated. Now then, intermediary or program manager. So they will, what they will do to solve the social and environmental issues, and they will match interested partners. They will negotiate the terms of contract and perform due diligence. And these will be the entities with result-based financing, can also be the government. Now let us see what are the pros and cons of this development impact bond structure. These development impact bonds, they are apt for programs whose implementation models already have a proof of concept and where the outcomes of choice have well-defined and measurable qualitative metrics, surrogates, as opposed to outcomes that are intangible. So basically, there are certain programs who have got, say, measurable quantitative metrics. So these development impact bonds are apt for programs whose implementation models already have a proof of concept and where the outcomes of choices have well-defined and measurable qualitative metrics or surrogates, as opposed to outcomes that are intangible. Suppose the idea is to uplift the overall standard of living. So now that may not be a measurable characteristics. So development impact bonds may not be a suitable for such type of activities. So basically it should be measurable. So develop, because independent this evaluator, he will also judge it based on the certain parameters. So development impact bonds could be suitable for certain types of works only. So development impact bond, they will not work well for projects that have no proven pilots in place already or require significant innovation to implement. Similarly, it will not be suited to projects that have a multiplicity of variables or where outcomes cannot be linked to the inputs or interventions by the service provider, or where the solution that needs implementing is not intervention but a product or a tool. So these development impact bonds, they will also work in certain types of situations only and not for all types of activities. The DIB route becomes economical for relatively large projects that need large investments. Service providers, because they can set questions on this, that okay, the DIBs will be suitable for which type of organizations. So DIB route becomes economical for relatively large projects that need large investments. Service providers must also have the requisite ability to scale up to reasonably achieve the outcomes laid out and be able to absorb the additional monitoring and oversight that comes with the financial structuring involved in a DIB. Because then definitely there will be additional monitoring and there will be additional overseeing. So there should be a definite scale of operation. So if you are working at too low a scale or too small a scale, then development impact bonds could not be a criteria. So these are suitable for large projects or projects that require large investments. Now let us see the examples of DIBs in India and other jurisdictions. India is among a few nations that are in the forefront in terms of concerted activities towards the mainstreaming of development impact bonds. Quality education, DIB, with a total value of USD 10 million. It focuses on improving literacy and numeracy of 2 lakh children in Rajasthan, Gujarat, and Delhi, and has multiple service providers such as KEF, Gyanshala, and SARD. So India is yet to see examples where the government steps in as an outcome funder, in which case these bonds would be referred to as social impact bonds. So India, till now, it has not stepped in as outcome funder. So if such development impact bonds come from an outcome funder, so they will be referred to as social impact bonds. The United Kingdom pioneered the social impact bond model, and its government had a central role to play in this. Further, several outcome funds for multiple impact bonds have been launched in the UK, including the Innovation Fund, which supported 10 social impact bonds for education and employment for disadvantaged young people. So now they could say that, okay, whether India has come as a outcome funder? No, not yet. So in the USA, impact bonds are better known as pay for success projects. So here too, federal support has been observed to play an important role. For instance, the Social Impact Partnerships to Pay for Results Act was passed in 2018, and it aims to support outcome-based financing and provide funding from the Treasury for social impact partnerships, including PFS projects. Now, how this is the last we'll take. So how these DIBs can benefit from the social stock exchange in India. The social stock exchange platform can support social enterprises, both NPOs and FPEs, large donors, because we know, like in case of development impact bonds, you need large projects. So large donors could come for this subscribing to the development impact bonds, like CSR contributors and high net worth individuals, philanthropic donors, by providing a scaled up avenue to galvanize funding to credible social impact creating opportunities. Therefore, it can help development impact bonds access a greater spread of CSR donors and risk investors to attract funding for social outcomes. While the service providers, that the social enterprises, commit to reporting requirements to the social stock exchange to signal credibility and performance, companies, particularly smaller companies trying to solve their CSR deployment strategy, can rely on the social stock exchange for less complex ways to invest up to 100% of their funds. A listing of DIBs on the social stock exchange can enable showcasing of the programs and listed under each DIB to a more diverse and larger set of funders, because these funders, they will also be looking at the programs in which they are investing. So if there is a listing of development impact bonds on the social stock exchange, so they will be definitely showcasing the programs for which they are garnering funds. So it will lead to a more diverse and larger set of donors, including by philanthropic contributors as potential outcome funders. For example, HNI donor may be pitched with a proposition that a donation of INR 50,000 is to be made only if two low income or low skilled youth are placed in jobs with income of over INR 15,000. Like you might have seen the concept of saying, okay, you pay for one brick. The donation is towards construction of a hospital. And for one brick, you have to pay a contribution of 5,000 rupees. So similar could be the concept here that, okay, one bond could be say worth 1 lakh rupees or 2 lakh rupees. So that could be, but definitely the donors will be attracted when the programs are listed, and it will attract more donors. So with significant reporting and transparency in the development impact bond structure, it can help donors get over the apprehensions of donating to a fraudulent or ineffective service provider. ठीक है, जो मैं बोल रहा था आपको, क्या होता है एनपीओस गड़बड़ भी बहुत करती हैं, पैसा ले लेती हैं, वी आर काइंड पीपल, हम लोग बोलते हैं भाई वो ये इसके लिए काम कर रहे हैं, उसके लिए काम कर रहे हैं, वी गिव मनी, बट दे डोंट यूटिलाइज इट प्रॉपरली. But now when they are subject to regulations, when they are subject to checks, so definitely such fraudulent or ineffective service providers will be curbed and make the donations only if the outcomes are achieved. It can help build a lot more trust for the philanthropy market, which is estimated at over 35,000 crores. तो देखो इंडिया में बहुत सारे kind hearted people है, ऐसा नहीं है, लेकिन बात ये they want to give to the right type of organization. And if such structures are built, so definitely more credibility will come. Okay? Things will be available for anyone to see. Also, through the infrastructure created by the social stock exchange, donors can be issued online receipts, etc. Okay? Rather than having to follow up with individual NPOs. In addition, development impact bonds can also enable investors to be impact investors by acting as risk investors and placing their money with selected service providers and earn a small return on their investment if the service providers deliver on results. ठीक है, तो इस तरह से भी ये काम हो सकता है. I think we can stop here and उसके बाद में फिर financing instruments for NPO, this we'll see tomorrow. तो ऐसा है कि on Sunday we are planning to have a test. संडे को क्या करेंगे, संडे सेकेंड हाफ में और संडे इवनिंग वी विल प्लान ए टेस्ट फॉर वट एवर वी आर एबल टू कवर अप टू सैटरडे. ठीक है जी, तब तक कुरुच पढ़ते रहिए थोड़ा थोड़ा. और दूसरा क्या बोला था आपने, वर्ड क्या बोला था? Kure. That is more. So some people can study Kure, some people can study Kuruch.